Also,
You'd think Tamlin would be looking out, be like, "Oh my god," you know?
like you can count the days too, Tamlin. You think he's like you would think that he would be standing in the front of the manor,
Yes.
being like, "When is she gonna get here? When is he bringing her back?"
Or, like, being like, "Pack your shit." He said 7 days, we're about to go get him. Like,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
it's
But
not
he's just
7
like in
days.
the study looking at a map for no war reasons.
Yeah, there's no war. Why I just look at the map for funsies, so engrossed that I don't hear my fiancé, who's been kidnapped for a week, come
Hmm.
back into the house because I'm just looking at a nothing map about a nothing war for no reason.
Welcome back to the Book Breathing Bitch Queens podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Allie, and this week we're diving into chapter 7. So this is basically like it starts off in the same conversation that we ended chapter 6 in, where Rhys he tells her that war is coming to Prithian, and so then they kind of talk about that for honestly a while, longer than I remembered. And then yeah, we get the rest of the week, and she's practicing more of her writing. And then at the end there, we hear the conversation between him and Moore, where she's kind of like overhearing, and then they sort of let her overhear, and um, we hear about. I think this is the first. Is this the first mention of Cassian and Azriel?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first time we hear about them and about the Kazir. How do you say that?
I
So
think I
whatever.
was
That's
saying, yeah. Hmm.
Tazir, maybe. That happened, and yeah, then we get a little more banter between Rhys and Feyre, another breakfast, and then we get back to the spring court, where it feels like we spent so long in the night court. It feels like crazy how long it's been. But then anyway, she sees Tamlin, he jumps up, and then he immediately interrogates her
Uh-huh.
and is like, you gotta tell me everything you know, and some interesting tensions there as well.
Hmm.
Kind of a long, it's a
It was a
hefty
long
chapter.
it was a long chapter. I feel like I don't have a whole lot of notes, but it was a longer chapter. I don't have anything for the first page.
I just thought it was interesting how the first thing she does, like, it's kind of reminiscent of how she was so scared of Tamlin for so long in the spring court. To me,
Mhm.
the way that she's still, the first thing she does is, don't invade, please.
Yeah.
That's the first reflex, and it kind of doesn't make sense. But I just thought it was interesting that it's like those instincts. It's like weirdly pathetic. Um,
And he also seems a little annoyed, right? Like she goes into like full on like pleading and he's like, "You truly think I'm a monster after everything?" Like he's a little kind of offended at first. And then she like keeps going and he's like, "I'm not going to invade the mortal lands, you dumb bitch." Like
oh,
he's so annoyed with her like, "Would you stop, please, and just take a breath, crazy woman?" Like
yeah.
that's what? Yeah.
And then yeah,
And then
the
he
rock
scolds her to put then he scolds her to put her shields up.
uses his High Lord power. That's what it is, right? That's like
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if I'm sure that Tamlin has used this voice and that she's been like you could tell it's his voice or like
I think
it's
so. I feel like I've seen it before in that before.
yeah, but I feel like there was something about this where right had me acting on instinct and it's kind of like the werewolf trope where like the alpha uses the alpha voice and like everybody else like instinctually like bows or backs off or whatever.
Hmm.
And I don't think that that was necessarily the case when Tamlin does it. She was just like, "Oh, he's using his High Lord voice." Ooh. Where when Rhys does it, there's this like instinct to fold or to like right to follow,
Yeah.
um, which is not great, I guess, if we're trying to not paint Rhys as a shitball, but like also could be speaking to like this is her court, and it already knows that, and that
Mm.
like it's the instinct is that like oh, he's the High Lord. Like this is her High Lord.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like well, I think with High Lord, I think Tamlin could do it. It's like she was like I think she respects Reese more maybe, so
Yeah.
she's more willing to listen. But I would think if it's a High Lord thing that it doesn't matter the High Lord.
Yeah.
Even if it recognizes your court. But I was also thinking like because we often are talking about how Reese is like aligned with Dorian, and Dorian has raw power, and I'm like raw command, so
Mhm.
I just am
Mhm.
always paying attention to like word associations like that. So um that was kind of interesting. But it's also could just I think it's just meant to be like, remember we do magic here.
Yeah.
Just like a little thing. I don't know. Um
I do think that there's already evidence that there's like serious internal tensions in the Spring Court on the next page,
uh-huh.
right? Because Rhys asks, "Did you think it would end with Amarantha?" And she said, "Tamlin hasn't." And then she goes on to say, "And would he tell me? But there were so many patrols, so many meetings I wasn't allowed to attend, such tension. He had to know. I needed to ask him, demand why he hadn't told me." And like,
Yeah.
well, tensions where, babe? Are you just talking about the tension between you and Tamlin? Because I'm pretty sure you're talking about within the Spring Court.
Yeah. No, she definitely knows like what are all those meetings? Like we were saying in book 1, we're like, what are all those meetings?
Yeah.
But like she's noticing it. And I will also think like I think I just wrote in my notes here, I was like, one of the best ways to turn her against Tamlin is by making her think that he kept her in the dark about her
Yeah.
family and their
Yeah.
safety. I think few things can probably get through to her at this point when
Mm-hmm.
she's so still on guard. Um, but that is like I think always the key
Yeah.
to her. And so I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
Because I am kind of looking for those traces of like there's some good ones at the end of this chapter too.
Now, okay, I get that there are plenty of empires and countries that have ruled in other places far from them, right? The British Empire did a bunch of shit, right? And
Mhm.
you know, they
All
ruled
over.
the colonies here
Yeah.
and, you know, all the things. But I still find it a little strange that Hybern, which is this smallish island, ruled places on the continent.
Does
And
it?
yeah, he says, right, he wants to reclaim the human lands there. So reclaim the human lands there, meaning he lost the southern part of the
Oh, I didn't
continent.
assume that was, like, reclaim them for the Fae, like, and not, like, that he had ruled them before, just that he didn't want the wall at all.
But he
So,
says
maybe
he
he
wants
he
to
wants.
maybe, but it says he wants to reclaim the human lands there, perhaps seize the fairy lands too. So he
Hmm.
wants the entirety of the continent.
Yeah.
And it seems like the only reason why he has a stake in Prithian is because Prithian is what separates him from the continent. But it doesn't seem like it's his actual goal.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I
And then
really book
and
6, we better get some continent
and then
stuff.
it's really strange that the mortal queens who are on the continent in the place
Yep.
that he wants to take over align with him.
That I could see he's just trying to entrap them, so he's doing spies and making them think that they're aligned while he can use them for stuff.
Sure.
But yeah. Hmm.
But it is just strange. I'm like, it just sort of feels like the stakes are a little bit lowered on this second read where you're like, war is coming. You're like, well, he yes, but like his goal is not actually Prithian. His goal is only to conquer you quickly.
Yeah,
So that
but
he
to
because
Feyre, all she thinks about is her family.
yeah.
She kinda doesn't really care about the continent that
Yeah.
much.
It just seems
Yeah.
like an interesting like if I'm trying to look into like the lore and the world building and like the political intrigue, like Hybern's goal is continental goals where it's like this, you know, even though Prithian is large, it seems like okay, well couldn't you just go like would Prithian stand with the continent or is the only reason why Prithian's worried about Hybern is because Hybern has decided that like because you're between us I'm going to go after you when he could very well go around it and just
Mhm.
go to the continent itself. Now granted, he might need to bring the wall down on Prithian because that's where the holes are already and it's a much closer place to jump into. And if he brings the wall down on the smaller island, then and it would
Maybe
bring
it'll
it down all the way over, then I could see that being like a strategic point. But the idea of being like Hybern is going to attack us specifically because he, you know, I don't know, it just felt like the stakes were a little muddied.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I also, for some reason, was picturing the opposite, that Hybern was in the middle of the rest of the continent.
Well, and then I'm wondering like where was Hybern at Like, was Hybern was their kingdom originally on that island, or were they exiled to that island? Maybe they were. Maybe they're people of the continent, and when they went to war, they
Hmm.
were exiled to that island. That could be it too, but we don't know that, right? But it does say that, like,
Thousands of years ago or something.
well, but Rhys says that, like, he fought in the war, and I believe he fought on the continent. And he says in the south where, like, the stuff was the thickest. He says that in the next book. I just read it.
Oh, okay.
Um, we also get much more territories on the continent and on the map in the next book.
Mhm.
But he made it sound like they fought the war. the The human Fey War was mostly fought on the continent. And so I'm wondering if when Hybern lost his land on the continent and the wall went up, that his court was exiled to the island.
Huh. That is interesting. Maybe. I feel like they would have mentioned that or something,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, I don't know.
yeah. Um. Hmm.
Yeah, right. He will seek to remove Prithian from his way swiftly. Like, he wants the continent.
Yeah.
If anyone is to intercept the conquering fleet before it reaches the continent, it would be us. So he would seek to remove us swiftly and thoroughly and shatter the wall at some point in the process. It already has holes in it. He'll want to bring the whole thing down and likely use the ensuing panic to his advantage.
Hmm.
So it's like it's like one small step for his bigger victory.
I never really read. I skipped that over that entirely, and I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Like, I just assumed he would eventually go over the continent as well,
Hmm.
but yeah, I didn't realize that he was aiming for that initially. I guess.
I also feel like it's really strange that they keep saying, like, right, and again, maybe it's just because we don't know enough at this book and I don't remember enough. Like, right, we get a glimpse at different High Lords once we get to the High Lords meeting. And I do believe that they all ally against Hybern except for Tamlin. Um,
No, Tamlin joins. He just isn't. It's not obvious because he gets all bitchy.
yeah, and doesn't he say he's gonna, like, be a spy or some shit, or I don't know, but
Yeah.
they all ally against Hybern, but it didn't seem like it took much of an argument, right? When they're like, oh, he'd have allies here. He says cowards who would bow and join him rather than fight in his armies again. And I'm like trying to think of the High Lords. I'm like, Callius is for sure, or not Callius.
Tarquin.
Yeah, Tarquin for sure is not going to side with him, right? Tarquin wants to make big moves. He's not going to side with someone who would want to enslave people. He's wanting to bring equality to his court. So then I'm like, okay, so night won't. And then dawn and day, what we see of them, like Helion seems pretty straightforward. Like it didn't even take very much convincing for him to be like on board. And then you
Yeah.
have Winter.
Maybe Winter did in the past, in like the 500 years ago. Maybe it was a different leader, but now after their younglings were killed, there's no one
Yeah.
on top. Of him. But maybe that would have been the
So
original.
really the only people that they're worried about is autumn and spring.
Maybe honestly, Rhys is just making it sound scarier than it actually is, or maybe he doesn't trust Tarquin
Or
yet, and
yeah,
so he's
that
like Tarquin and summer, spring and autumn are all gonna side with him, and that's half the course.
that or he's being a little he's basically saying, like, just saying Tamlin. He might just be saying Tamlin, but instead of being like, you know,
Instead of directly calling it out like
yeah,
that.
right. He'd have
Yeah.
allies here. He's like, Tamlin might be coward enough to bow to him instead of fighting in his wars.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Because Tamlin didn't
interesting.
fight in the first war, right? And Tamlin hasn't done shit for 50 years.
Mhm.
Like, Rhys for sure thinks
Well,
that
and
Tamlin
Tamlin's
is.
dad did align with Hybern
Yeah,
initially.
exactly.
So,
So I think he might
um,
be kind of just calling it out, right? But doesn't want to just throw it out there like that.
mhm. Yeah. Um, and this is also the first we hear of the wall shattering,
Mm-hmm.
which is, obviously a huge plot point. So it's just interesting to know this is like the first we hear of
Right.
it.
Sorry. This is where Rhys says that he fought on the continent. I was young, by our standards at least, but my father had sent aid to the Mortal Fairy Alliance on the continent, and I convinced him to let me take a legion of soldiers.
Oh
So,
yeah.
on the continent. I was stationed in the south, right where the fighting was thickest, the slaughtering was. I have no interest in ever seeing full-scale slaughter like that again. So he fought on the continent. That's where the war
Hmm.
was. So I'm wondering if the war was actually on the continent and that Hybern ruled an area on the continent. And then when he lost, that's when he was sent to Hybern as an exile for having lost the war.
Yeah, or maybe that's where his like base was. He just had much more territory
Yeah.
and then was driven out type of thing. That would make sense too. I also just like that he's just telling her this and he's not coddling her emotions like at all.
And I also think that the reason why I think that the cowards who would bow to him is a straight call out to Tamlin is because there's a straight call out to Ianthe as well, but Feyre misses it. Right, where he says, now we have several untested High Lords, broken courts, with high
Mm.
priestesses angling for control like wolves around a carcass. I don't think he's actually saying all the high priestesses are like that. And maybe they are, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Ianthe can't be trusted, and
No, it
she
feels like a
says,
direct hit
but it
to
sounds like a
Ianthe.
direct hit. And then Pharaoh was like, she's my friend. She's Tamlin's friend, perhaps the only allied we'd have against the other high priestesses. And I'm like, no, I think the other high priestesses would
The other way around.
definitely. Yeah, exactly. Especially since their temples are the ones that are getting sacked by Hybern, right? The high priestesses are going to be on your side to protect that
Yeah.
versus Ianthe,
Is
who's not going to give a fuck.
is there a high priestess in Night?
No.
There's those library people, but those are not like.
Yeah, no, there's no high priestesses in because there's priestesses, but there's no high priestesses in the night court.
Mm.
He says that there's a couple and other ones, and I think there's 12 of them total.
Oh, probably a lot of them are on the continent actually.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. That actually makes more sense why Aanthe has more influence because I was like, why is she if she's a high priestess when there's only 12? Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's why.
My notes for 72, it answers the question right after, so I literally just drew an arrow and said, duh."
Like you asked a question and then it like
Yeah,
immediately
because
answered.
he said when he says, "You have the skill set that I need," rumor has it that you caught a Suriel, and I was like, "Why does he want to catch a Suriel? Or is it just that, like, she has hunting skills and, like, she can track stuff?" And then he
Mhm.
literally says, like, "To use those skills, of yours to track down what I need." I'm like, "Ah, right, okay." So, yes, it's
Mhm.
just he's not worried about he doesn't want a Suriel himself. He knows that she can track something that he was unable to track, not to
Yeah.
mention, the Middengard worm and all the other things, so
Yeah.
also, apparently Rhys, right? So Rhys voices that he thinks that she has powers from the other seven High Lords. And so I was like, oh, was Rhys the first one to catch on to that she has this? But then when she goes back, we'll talk about it, she asks Tamlin and she's like, did you suspect? And he's like, I had hoped not. So, like, Tamlin has suspected for a while, apparently,
Lucian
before.
acts like he basically knows.
Yes.
Because it says Lucian looked down and I was like, that's an admission.
And they didn't say anything to her. Where, like, Rhys sees it's the 7 days with Rhys, and he's like, I think you have powers.
Yeah.
And I think that this is also like the foreshadowing of her being a high lady. I mean, it's straight up is because, like, um the strength, the speed. If I didn't know better, I'd say you and Tamlin are doing a very good job at pretending you're normal, that the powers you're displaying aren't usually the first indications among our kind that a High Lord's son might become his heir. And then she's like, I'm not a High Lord. He goes, no, but you were given the gifts of all seven of them. And I'm like, okay, well, like, maybe he's dismissing it. But I was like, no, I think what's happening is that she has High Lady powers and not
Hmm.
just like, oh, well, you have the powers of all seven of us. So, like, maybe that's what's happening. It's like, no, no, this is the signs
Yeah.
that she is going to be the heir. And then he
I
says,
like
right,
that when he
if you
says
could
that.
stand against us, hold your own, a high lady. And she says, there's no high ladies. And then he literally seems so annoyed with her. And he's like, we'll talk about that later too, but yes, there can be high ladies. Like, who the fuck told you there's no high ladies? What the fuck?
I think he knows because the way he says it, we'll talk about that later. So it seems like he heard some of Feyre's thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Um, and
Or if it's already kind of in his mind that, like, if she were ever to choose me, I'm gonna make her I'm gonna make her a high lady. Like, maybe he's already kind of like, if she
true.
ever knows about the bond and accepts the bond, that is what I want to do.
Hmm. Or maybe just the way she says there are no high ladies, he knows that she's reciting what
Yeah.
Tamlin told her, and he's like, he
He's
sees
like,
through
yeah,
it.
I heard that conversation and he's full of shit. So we'll talk about that later. But yes, there are high ladies.
Well, and Rhys is just like Tamlin is just like a follow the procedure, who
Mm-hmm.
cares about the actual people, and Rhys is like a break the rules kind of
Yeah.
kind of guy.
Well,
Uh,
also, if magic chooses who becomes the High Lord, right? Then who's to
yeah.
say that it can't be you're right, it's like that's not a Fey law, that's magic rules. Like that stuff
Maybe
they don't
they
have
just
that's
make it
cauldron
happen by
blessed shit.
killing any would-be high ladies in the past. Like
Sure, and I'm
that's
fine
not,
with that, but
I'd be
like
more surprised. Yeah.
Tamlin's not the oldest son, so it's not like it goes by any laws of ascension, right? It's like whichever one the magic deems is going to be the best High Lord. Like, sure, I guess it has to be someone from that line, but you would assume that if magic chooses the heir, then it could choose someone that's not of the last High Lord's blood.
Yeah.
And then what if the High Lords don't have an heir?
Yeah. No, it says they say it's at some point, I think it's in Akawar where if it's not the High Lord, it'll go to someone in the family. Um, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it should stay with it, but
Yeah,
maybe it
but
just
it's not
happens to.
something that they delegate. It's not something that they, like,
Yeah.
convene on, right? It's not like
Well, they could just
Engl
kill at people until they get the person that they want.
Sure,
There's only
sure.
one more eligible person. I wonder who will be
Yeah.
like,
But then who knows?
yeah.
Maybe, could you imagine if, like, the entire line just shifted?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that is you're right, like, he's just putting it out there for her. He's including her in this. He's telling her
Mhm.
straight away. He's being honest with her, and not just being honest with her because what he wants out of it, which granted, maybe we could be like, "Oh, well, he's only telling her this because he needs her." But he's also telling her that her family's in danger
Mhm.
and that he thinks that she has powers. Like, he's informing her on the things she cares about, herself and her family. Where
And
Tamlin
what
is
powers
like,
her.
yeah, and Tamlin's just like, "Nah, I had just hoped we would just ignore it."
Yeah, and I also like how what he wants from her is not her face skills, it's her human skills, like the things that she had even before she
Yeah,
was
yeah,
this powerful being. And I think he actually wants it. I don't think he's even being like, look at me, I'm so
yeah,
I think he's just like, you're sick. Uh
yeah.
like cool.
He's like, "You were able to do something as a mortal that I wasn't able to do as a fae twice. I tried it twice
Yeah.
and I failed twice. And you were
Mhm.
able to do it when you were still a human. So I
Yeah.
could only imagine what you're able to do now that you have the possibility of lots of powers."
Mhm. Yeah, it's awesome.
I do love that Rhys says the quiet parts out loud here on page 74.
Hold on. Oh, I have something on 73. Should I say it
Oh, okay.
or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, the part in the middle of 73 where it says, okay, so Rhys says that, you, what if you could be a high lady? She says, no, no high ladies. He said there can be. And then, what if you could blend into darkness? He describe all these powers. What if you could do all these things? Then it says, the winter wind on nearby peaks seemed to howl and answer that thing I'd felt under my skin. That's, sorry. I guess the only thing I was going to say is that we had debated if that was her power. I think
Mhm.
that's more confirmation that that is her power.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
another one later too. And then
There's once when she gets back to the spring court too that there's the
yes,
the the moving under her skin.
seems like whenever she's kind of, I mean, it makes sense when she's scared or angry, she
Yeah.
can really feel it. Yeah, and then the Tamlin won't allow it at the end.
Uh-huh. And he's like, "Tamlin isn't your keeper, you know it, and you know it." And she goes, "I'm his subject and he's my high lord." And he's like, "You are no one's subject." Like he's so like, "What are you doing?" He's so annoyed. And like I think part of it is the mate bond, right? That like there's this
Yes,
protection and this like you're better whatever, but I think that there's also just a level of
annoyed at loser boyfriend.
yeah, well yeah, and just
He's like,
like
this is like what your best friend would also do. If you're like,
yes. Yes, it's such friend vibes where you're just like, "What the fuck? He doesn't rule you. Like, you can go out with your
yeah,
friends." And you're like, "Oh, they would never let me do that." And you're like, "What? Like, you're
mm-hmm.
not what the fuck?" Yeah, exactly.
Sam's one of the girlies.
Yes. I love this part where he says, "I will say this once and once only. You could be a pawn, be someone's reward, and spend the rest of your immortal life bowing and scraping, pretending you're less than him, than Ianthe, than any of us. If you want to pick that road, then fine. A shame, but it's your choice. But I know you more than you realize that I think you don't believe for one damn minute that you're remotely fine with being a pretty trophy for someone who sat on his ass for nearly 50 years and then sat on his ass while you were shredded apart." And I'm like, "Say it louder."
When I saw this set on his ass part, I wrote, he's a Sam stan.
Yes. I'm like, this
Uh,
lazy piece of shit. Yes.
yeah, Rhys is Team Sam. That's what I said.
Yes. Well, and that's why it's so easy for her to infiltrate Spring Court later on, right? Because like he's not the only one who's going to think this. Like imagine that your people, right? So there we know that his people were taken under the mountain. So you
Hmm.
have swaths
Rhys's
of
people?
no, Tamlin's, right? Tamlin's people were
Mhm.
under the mountain. Some of them were put in these concentration camps where they did horrendous things to one another or had
Yeah.
horrendous things done to them, right? And the whole time that you were under the mountain in, Amarantha, Auschwitz, with God knows what craziness happening,
Mhm.
your High Lord was in his manor. And then when you finally get to a point where you're like, okay, our High Lord is here, he's going to do something, you watch for 3 months while he doesn't do anything and someone else saves you. And then you come back to the court and you don't get to see that someone else because she's hidden away. And
Mhm.
and then you're rebuilding. And I'm assuming that the only time you see the High Lord is when he's walking about doing his High Lord bullshit, which is
Mhm.
not helping you rebuild. In fact, it's asking you for taxes. And on top
Yeah.
of that, might be even telling you, hey, when the one person who did save you comes in, turn her away. But I'm just like, what the yeah. So like there's no way that his people are just like, we're free. Tamlin's our high lord, yay. They're probably like, this fucker, he's not gonna have our back. So then the second that Hybern comes in, not to mention all the bullshit that she does, you can already see the people are probably like, what the fuck? Like
Mhm.
you didn't do anything when we were trapped by Amarantha. Now you brought her dude here? That's insane. And he's like, we need to have a united front. Yeah, no shit, because your people are pissed, bro.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, I
crazy.
wonder if they knew that Hybern was there, like, when they were patrolling, or if he kept that kinda quiet. Like, when the twins were there?
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't really ever hear anything about the
Mm-mm.
rest of the court. I do think it's a lots of world building
Yeah,
issue. It just makes it feel like there's 4 people in the Spring Court,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's it. When you know there's that
yeah,
probably thousands of people in the Spring Court,
yeah.
and but it also kinda does speak to the fact that Tamlin doesn't care about them because he never brings them up.
Well, and you would have to assume that the sentries, maybe some of them don't live on
Yeah,
the premises, right? So
or
like
maybe they
they're
come for, like, the week, yeah.
yeah, like they do whatever, or they at least go back to barracks, right?
Yeah.
And they all have families in the spring court, so I'm sure that they have some sort of leave. Could you
Mhm.
imagine that they're like they go and they're like, Ma, you will not imagine who the fuck just came to Tamlin's house. Hybern royalty. And then nosy Ma is like, ooh, and little
And blabbers
gossip.
to
Yeah,
everyone, yeah.
exactly. Stupid, stupid leader. Stupid leader.
Oh, I also just like how, he just ditches her. Like, he's just
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, figure it out," and to me, it's like, this is classic hard to get, would've driven me crazy. If I
Mm-hmm.
was in her situation, I'd be like, "Okay, I know I hate you, but, like, where'd you go?" He really just stays away, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's crazy."
Yeah.
I was like, "What do you mean you could ditch me?" Um,
You're like, I'm bored. Come hang out.
yeah,
I'm gonna go
and
steal some of your wine. Come drink with me. Last time we drank together, we had so much fun.
I'll dance on you again. Because there might be a day, Feyre, when you stand between the king of Hybern and your human family, and you don't want to be unprepared. Okay,
What
well,
page
so
is that?
it's gonna be between her and human family and Hybern,
Mm-hmm.
but that is kind of the tell of the rest of the series is like Feyre protecting her sisters or trying to, or I don't know.
Well, and that's what happens at the end of the book, right?
Yeah. In Yeah, that's true.
And imagine, like, she is as prepared as I mean, she's more prepared, and it still goes to shit.
Mhm.
Imagine if she wasn't prepared at all.
Yeah.
I would like to know what Azriel would want to know. Because Moore says Azriel would want to know, and he says Azriel can
Oh,
go to hell. He likely already knows anyways. And she said, we
okay.
played games last time and we lost badly. We're not going to do that again. And then they change the
I
subject
see.
and talk about the temple being attacked.
Well, also before that, I love all there's so much like free imagery in the way that she describes the night court.
Mm-hmm.
Just as builds that case really nicely. Um, okay, so we played games last time and we lost badly. We're not going to do that again. So she must be talking about when did she play games and they lost with Amarantha?
I guess. Or in the last war.
But they didn't lose the last war.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they.
Well, then, yeah, I guess it would be with Amarantha.
Yeah. Yeah, like that maybe like she's talking about like the wine and stuff like that and
Mm-hmm.
so maybe she's like seeing this as like Amarantha came out as just like a couple people, a couple spies and then it snowballed and like yeah, maybe that's what it is. And I don't know why he wouldn't want to tell Azriel. But and then okay, I also was like he responds to that by saying you should be working. I gave you control for a reason. Control? Is that just of the
Of the Court of Nightmares.
but I thought she's had control for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, how is Kira okay with that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
he's
know.
just in charge of his
He's yeah,
Nightbringers. He's not
yeah.
really like a ruler.
I don't think so.
But you'd think he'd be much more of a little bitch about it, right? His
Yeah.
daughter, who he like hates, is
Mm-hmm.
like ruling him.
Yeah.
Maybe that just speaks to Rhys's power, or his fear tactics. But I don't know. That gave you control. Like, what does he want her to do? Like, just go away, or
Yeah.
like, is there something she can do that could help this situation? Like you were talking about. I don't know when you were talking about this. You were talking about how like that the mirror that they have that Feyre
Mm-hmm.
uses. Like maybe she's supposed to be doing something with that. Is I don't know, but it just seems like not.
I have a theory that
Oh, that was what I'm. It's part of your theory. Do you want to like
yes.
do that? Like
Yeah.
go through
So
the
I have
whole
a theory,
thing?
and it's not completely
I think
new,
it's a
right?
good one.
There's other people who think that more is related to the witches. And
Yes.
what I have heard is like some of the arguments is because she with like, she has this secret house in the woods, which is very much Asterin like, right? That she has this like secret, dude in the woods. Um and then also because more they nail the letter to her stomach, and Astrid had, unclean carved into her belly with iron nails. Um, and so kind of that's a similarity. What I found, what I think points to her being witch related, and I think specifically Crochan witch. I think she's a Crochan queen. She's referred to as a queen a number of times, right? When she's first introduced, um Rhys says, right, she's as close to a queen as we have, or some shit like that. And then when we're in Hybern later in this book, Hybern looks to her when she's doing whatever, and he's like, huh, some queen indeed. Like, kind of spats that at her. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And with the truth being her power, right, I think what that means is that she can make witch mirrors, or that her family has the witch mirror power, because the people pronounce it the Veritas. It's Latin, so I pronounce it Veritas just to get with it. But so the orb, the Veritas orb that they see, that they take to the queens and show them Valaris through, is something that is said that was handed down from Moore's family, one of her like ancient ancestors in Moore's family. It's been in Moore's family for years. That's why Rhys can't just go into the night court and just take it. It's not his, it's Moore's family's heirloom. They also have, right? And that thing, it's called the Veritas. It's literally called truth, and it shows the truth of things, right? And then
He
on
just
top of,
has a truth
yeah,
power.
yeah, right. She has a crystal ball that shows you truth. And on top of that, she also has an actual mirror that is supposed to show you like like your truest, or
True
like
self.
your deepest secrets or whatever, but it's like the most true self. It shows all of the shit that you don't want to know about yourself or whatever, right? It shows you a
Mhm.
truth, which is again what witch mirrors can do, right? They can show you all sorts of shit.
How do we know that? Is that from Throne of
Throne
Glass?
of Glass. So Throne of
Some
Glass, I mean, the witch mirrors are a number of things. We don't get like specifics on whatever, but the witch mirror that they use to look back into the past was the one that Rhiannon, the last Crochan queen, helped Elena create to put the memory of what had happened into it. And then she also added the memory of her conversation with Nehemia. And that's when they're in the swamplands or whatever, and they
I didn't realize
because
they were going into the past. I
they
for some
walk
reason forgot about
through a
that.
mirror to
Yeah.
get to this other place where there's another little mirror or whatever, or they walk into the mirror and they see the truth of the past.
Mm. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I
Because they
remember
have
that
this
scene, I just
big
forgot a
ass
lot
mirror
about
on this boat, and they're like, "What are we supposed to do with it?" And that's when Aelin and Manon are like, "That's a witch mirror. We got to walk into it, and it'll take us somewhere." And it takes them into the past, and shows them
it.
the truth of the past. And so I'm like, okay, so
Yeah. Mhm.
her power is truth. She's a witch, and I think she's a Crochan queen.
That would
Her
red.
color is red, and she believes in the cauldron, right?
Yeah, and
Crochan
Croaking means
means
cauldron.
cauldron witch.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think people make the more as a witch thing or more as evil or more as whatever, but I feel like that combination of evidence is not.
Also, another theory I have, and I haven't told you about this one.
Okay.
So, on the walls, or on the giant gate that goes into the Court of Nightmares, there's these serpenty, talony beings, right? And then there's those same serpenty, taloned, scaled beasts that are on the throne.
Mhm.
Rhys's family was not the original High Lord family of the Night Court. Mor's family originally ruled the Night Court.
Right, because 'cause they're not really cousins or something, right?
No, they're cousins in the loosest sense. But yeah,
Does that
so
mean
I don't know. But what I do know is that he says, right, long ago when it was Mor's family who ruled the Night Court and not my own. So what if those beings, because Mor is a descendant or is a Crochan queen, that those beings that are on the gates and are on the thrones are wyverns?
but didn't witches not always ride wyverns? They just did because that king of Adelin made them?
Yes, but if they're a descendant from that area,
Oh, like if Mor is descended from those witches that we know?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay. Yeah, because I remember talking about those. I thought they were more like wolf and dog-like, kind of.
there's hounds too. Yeah,
Okay.
I also think that the outdoors are Ilkin, but we'll get to that when
Yeah.
Valaris gets sacked.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
We'll
I don't
get
know.
to
I
that
think that
when
there's
Dolores gets yeah, that's funny to
I
me.
do think there's a lot of evidence for Mor being a witch, and it would also point to Feyre possibly having witch blood because when Mor meets Feyre, she says like, "Oh, you brought me my friend," and like calls to like. She doesn't
Mhm.
say you brought me a new friend. You brought me my friend. You brought me my people.
Yeah. That's funny. I love stuff like that, especially if that's true and that is one of the tells. Like, I just love the little word choices that make it.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about here, and I don't know that we ever find it out, but like the Azriel, because it's not the sacking of the temple, because when he says Azriel would want to know, he can go to hell, I'm sure he already knows. And then the playing games line. And then later when they're talking about the temple, he says, "What did Azriel say about it?" And she says he's pissed. So like clearly they're not talking about the temple.
Mhm.
Because if she already knows what Azriel is pissed, then she wouldn't say he would want to know. So they're talking about something different. Now we know that you know what he could be knowing?
That it's the feet of the cauldron?
No. So in the next book, when Lucien and Feyre are trekking their way through Autumn Court, he Lucien says that he went to Dawn Court to try to find a way to break the bargain because it's Dawn Court
Mhm.
that can curse break, that can spell break,
Yeah.
right? And so he was like, we went there and they didn't have answers, and that's why we went to Hybern, because Hybern said that he could do it,
Mhm.
and that they didn't go to Hybern until after she left. So what if it's that Lucien is in Dawn Court and they've been keeping an eye on Tamlin and Lucien because they have Feyre, so they're trying to make sure that they're not making their way north to come get her. And
Mhm.
now Lucien's in Dawncourt, which is a neighbor to Night. And so that might be where she's like, Azriel would want to know that they're traveling north. And he's like, he could fuck off. He probably already knows anyways. And then that's when she's like, we played games last time when we lost. Like,
I feel like it'd be something bigger than that
it could
that she
be.
would be pointing to, because I think they're not as scared of them,
Sure.
you know? Yeah.
But if it's like we played games last time and we lost badly, I mean, they are talking about a spell, right? If they're talking about Amaranth's spell, we played her games and we lost and she trapped your magic, then maybe she's like, okay, if they're going to look for a way to end the bargain, then he should know so he can
Mm.
figure out
See,
whatever.
to me, okay, if I had to make a guess, I would probably say that maybe they're talking about the fact that maybe what they're theorizing that Hybern is looking for the feet of the cauldron,
Yeah.
and that's what Azriel might want to know, and because he just knows about the attacks right now. That's one way I could square it. Only because I think Rhys doesn't want to tell people yet.
Well, but they don't say anything about the feet being taken yet. They just say that everybody was killed and that Cassian thinks that it's Illyrians who did it. So I don't even think they're
That's true.
on to Hybern being the ones that did it.
Hmm.
Although if he is already asking her to find the book, then maybe he is theorizing that they have the cauldron, but I don't think that he's put together that they need artifacts of the cauldron to fix it. Maybe he thinks that they already have the cauldron.
Wait, don't they know that Hybern has a cauldron, but that
They they
he can't really
suspect.
use it because it doesn't have the feet?
Well, they suspect he has the cauldron, but it's not until they get to the prison and talk to the bone carver that the bone carver says that the feet need to be found.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah,
Um,
I mean, my inclination is that maybe they're keeping an eye on Springcourt, and Springcourt is doing some shit, and that's why she's like, Azriel would want to know, and he's like, I'm not worried about
mhm.
it. Like,
Or maybe they just caught Rhys and Tamlin, sorry, Lucian and Tamlin talking to the Hybern.
maybe.
Like maybe Hybern already offered to break the bond,
Uh huh.
and then they were like, no, and then they're like, we got to go find another way, and then they resort to that
Yeah,
after.
maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I saw the word trove and I was like, ugh, but I don't think it's anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's also I always thought this was Gwyn's attack, but it's not because
It's
there's no
not.
survivors here. This is like the precursor.
Mm-hmm.
Um I also never really get like I mean, I guess it's just a thing. The thing when it's like when Rhys is angry, his wings come out. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
like the equivalent of Tamlin, but I just like it doesn't compute to me.
Yeah.
It seems weird. I also like I like that I like that he like she knows that he's letting her listen, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a very interesting dynamic. Like it's kind of this way of being like he's including her without like I don't know, maybe they even staged some of this conversation so that she would hear it, so that
Yeah,
they,
maybe.
but because I have a feeling if she would be super suspicious, but this kind of like is almost gives her some information on her own terms or something. Um, and then yeah, winnowing just
Here we learn about winnowing, which is the exact same description, a little bit more in depth, but the
mhm.
same description that Fenrir Fenris
Yeah.
gives Aelin when
Oh,
she
I thought you were
asks
gonna say Cormac.
no.
Oh, I thought he says at least
Fenris,
like that
because
too.
Fenris is the only one, him and his brother are the only ones who can winnow in Throne of Glass. And
Oh.
she asks him about it one time and he goes, it's kind of like folding like cloth over itself and you just step through it. Like you align the 2 points up and you step through it. And magic does the rest, is kind of what he says.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which I don't know why it took me so long to realize that all of this was intertwined because I remember reading Third in Class and being like, this sounds a whole lot like some Akatar shit right now.
I think your brain just doesn't assume things like that. Maybe now it will since you've read this and you know that it's becoming more popular. Um,
Well, and then it was also because I remember looking it up and they were saying things like, it's in the same universe but different worlds. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. Like there's some similarities, whatever. Same world, like same universe, everything in our universe spins. So, okay. Maybe winnowing is just,
Yeah.
an orbit of sorts.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was funny he did the Aladdin trick at the bottom of 78. You
Yes.
know?
Speaking.
That's what I thought of. Well, a top third of 79, where she's like,
Mhm.
"I wondered what Ianthe
Yeah.
would know about the murders." Like, I think she likes thinking through this,
Yeah.
and, like, I don't know, to me, this is, like, clues at, like, her high lady vibes.
She's also still a little bit on guard. She still kind of doesn't trust Rhys wholly to like, because
Mhm.
she's like, that final night, I could barely sleep, half from relief, half from terror that perhaps Rhys really did have some final nasty surprise in store. Like, you're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, what is he
Yeah,
gonna
well,
do to you? The worst thing he can do to you is take you under the mountain.
it's hard to remove your propaganda.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah. I think probably that is all it is.
She's
Also,
like, "He's gonna fucking make me read out loud, this fucker." This, like, the way she's just like, "He's gonna come in here into
and
my
now you're gonna
space,
give a
and
presentation to
he's
the
gonna
class.
close up all the windows, and he's gonna ask me to read out loud."
Seriously. Also I wrote, "She's wearing Aelin's eyes."
Yeah, mhm.
Her night court is teal and
Uh-huh.
gold.
He says the color suits you.
Yeah, he comments on it.
Well, and then he also says, right, "I want you to talk to me like a person." Like, he
I know,
doesn't
that line always makes me sad. I'm always just like,
like,
"You
can
sad
you
boy."
like, there's a part of him that's like, "Can you just stop being a bitch?"
Yeah,
For,
yeah,
like,
and
5 for
I
5
like
for 5 seconds?
yeah, and I do like that because it's also like a casualness. Like, I don't think Tamlin would say that to her because Tamlin
No.
wouldn't take her seriously enough. Like, if she was mad at Tamlin, he's just like, "Whatever, that's what women be
Well,
like."
and even still, Tamlin doesn't want her to talk to him like he's a person. He wants her to talk to him like he's her High Lord.
That's true.
He's like, I
That's
want you to
true.
talk to me like I'm just a person, dude. I'm your equal. Like, what the fuck?
Mhm. Also, like, she's sort of seeing the consequences of her actions on like people, and like, this is a real relationship. You're making me upset because you're talking to me rudely, and I
Mhm.
respond as a normal person. And also, you were kind of rude to Moore, and you didn't
Yeah.
ask her, and she was waiting, and she's like, I don't care. But I think she's just telling herself that. But I think she hasn't had like a true social situation in a while because she's well, even actually with her family, it wasn't like that's not real social situation. It's like your family where like you just
Yeah.
tell someone to fuck off, and you never
Yeah.
like have to mend it the way you do with like a friendship who could disappear from your life forever because they're like your permanent not friends, but um it's interesting.
Yeah.
Um I just thought, yeah, the more thing always makes me a little sad. I'm like, oh, you're mean to her.
Although I think he is pointing out that she doesn't ask enough questions.
Yeah,
Like, this
that's
is this
true
is a small way to point out you don't ask enough questions.
too.
Right? She's like, I didn't know, and he's like, you didn't ask. But why bother? Because it's okay. You would rather wallow and self pity and hide away. And I
Yeah.
think he's, like, gearing that up for, like, because that would be annoying. It'd be like, "Fuck, dude, fine. I'll ask next time. I don't wanna just, like, that's what you think of me, that I'd rather just be alone and blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Yeah, and I'm gonna send you back to the court where they force you to be alone, and you still don't ask questions. So maybe if I piss you off enough by pointing out that you don't ask questions and accuse you of rather being alone, then when you are in fact alone, when you go back to the Supreme Court for the next 3 weeks, maybe it'll urge you to ask some fucking questions and to speak up."
Yeah.
Little like, I mean, it's not reverse psychology, but it's a little bit of some like, it's not manipulative, but it's a little bit of like pushing her in a direction.
Yeah. I also think let's see this the way he says, "Are you ready to face the consequences of your departure?" And she's like, "I hadn't thought about the wedding." Girl, what do you mean? You just ditched your own wedding and you forgot? Like, this should be life altering. This should be
I
like,
mean, she
most
does.
people wallow about this for 6 months. If
Yeah, I
even
mean,
if
she
they
does.
want
She
to do
does
it, they
say
will.
that like she'd thought about it all week, yes, but today she hadn't thought about it, and it is only breakfast. So,
Oh, okay. I actually just misread that.
but even still, it's not the first. You know the amount of panic that I would have day in and day out if I had fucking dipped out of my wedding. And like
Yeah.
clearly I'm like, they know I wanted to say no. And now I gotta
Yeah.
go back. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like this Rhysand thing because, like, when she first sees him in the manor, and Tamlin or Lucien call him Rhysand, he's like, "Really, Rhysand? I thought we were
Mhm.
friends." And then, like, it's still kind of a thing. Like, I feel like he's playing with that a little bit. That she's
Mhm.
like, "I didn't ask for your opinion, Rhysand." He's like, "Rhysand? I give you a week of luxury, and you call me Rhysand?"
Mhm. I didn't ask to be here, and yet look at you.
Hmm. Yeah. He's like, it almost looks like you're fucking healing."
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. Okay, I also like how we get another. So he says, "I am not your enemy," and then she doesn't. She doesn't like. She's before. I think I don't know what she said last time.
She said, "Your
Um.
Tamlin or Tamlin says you are."
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then, but then here, I told you once. I'll tell you again. You're Tamlin's enemy, so I suppose that makes you mine. I'm like, girl, this is so half-hearted. This is so like.
Mhm.
I guess you have to be my enemy.
Yeah.
She is not she cannot even entertain like, "Yes, you are." She's just like, "Yeah, but you're my boyfriend's enemy too."
Yeah. I guess I'm not supposed to like you either because my boyfriend doesn't like you. And he's like, "Seriously? That's how this works?"
Yeah. Um, and I like my instinct was to grab him. Girl, yes it is.
I also feel like she makes a show of this a little bit when they land and he says good luck and she's like, "Get your hand off me." I feel like that's for show. I think it's because she doesn't want them to see her clinging to him.
It's funny. Or I feel like maybe she's like, "What am I doing?" Like it's almost like
Hmm.
she's back here and she's like, "Wait, actually, yuck."
Yeah.
Supposed to be yuck about you. Um, yeah. And I also thought it was fun how Lucian so she finds them both. Lucian's the first to turn. I don't know. I always notice stuff like that. Not,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. You
Also,
think Tam would be looking out, be like, oh my god, you know?
like you can count the days too, Tamlin. You think he's like you would think that he would be standing in the front of the manor,
Yes.
being like, "When is she gonna get here? When is he bringing her back?"
Or like being like, pack your shit. He said 7 days. We're about to go get him. Like,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
it's
But
not
he's just
seven
like in
days.
the study looking at a map for no war reasons.
Yeah, there's no war. Why I just look at the map for funsies. So engrossed that I don't hear my fiance, who's been kidnapped for a week, come
Hmm.
back into the house because I'm just looking at a nothing
Hmm.
map about a nothing war for no
And then he
reason.
takes stock of his prize to make sure that it hasn't been tarnished in any way.
Hmm. Well, that is at least fitting with his like protector. He's mostly just concerned about her physical well being and not
Yeah,
much else.
yeah.
Because that's what people can see. And also I noticed the crushing me against him,
Hmm.
classic.
Also,
Uh,
red flag, babe. He wrecked 3 rooms of the manor. That's
yes.
a red flag, honey.
And he says it like,
Like
he
it's
says it like a
cute.
badge of honor,
It's
like,
like
"Look how
it's
much I cared
cute.
about you, I destroyed half the house."
Mhm.
Like,
Like, yeah, I went a little crazy and killed
kinda
some
does
people.
think,
It's
like,
fine.
that probably was, like, part of his toxic family growing up is that, like, "Oh, if dad cares about you, he ruins shit."
Yeah.
So that's an interesting but, it is weird how he says it like that.
Yeah, and just like you have no idea what kind of games he's capable of playing. She's like, "I know. And next time I'll be careful." And then he says there won't be a next time, giving her hope that maybe he found a way to end the bargain. And she's like, "You found a way out?" And he's like, "I'm not letting you go next time. I'm not letting you go." Right? Again, this
Mhm.
very possessive. And
Yeah.
then, but she already knows, like, because she's like, he said there'd be consequences for making breaking a magical bargain. He says, "Damn the consequences." But I heard it for the empty threat that it was and how much it destroyed him. But like, he's not even sincere in that. "I'm not letting you go anywhere. Damn the consequences." And you're like, okay, buddy.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
not gonna rip himself apart for her.
Yeah, I think he just thinks that, he would, but he actually wouldn't. The same with the "You're all right" and the repeating of that, it
Yeah.
feels very dramatic, like
Well, and when her and Lucian are, when they've escaped Spring Court in book 3, right? They say like, if you didn't go with Tamlin, or if you didn't go with Rhys because Tamlin held you and didn't let you go, then the like rebound effect
Hmm.
would affect Tamlin, and it could have killed him to keep you and not let you go. And here she's like, he said there'd be consequences, and he's like, damn the consequences. But she knows it's an empty threat because she knows that he will not rip himself to shreds for her the way
Yeah.
that she ripped herself to shreds for him. And what he loses nothing when he at the end of the book, right? He makes
This
an
book.
ally at this book, right? It's like he loses nothing to get her back. She loses things again, right? Her sisters are tortured.
Mm-hmm.
They break the bargain. She's separated from her mate and the people that she considers family now. She goes and like, goes all infiltration spy mode or whatever. But he doesn't he does nothing costs him. He's like, I made a deal with Hybern and now they've got to come and hang out in my land. But like he's not suffering for any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to think if he had. Yeah. It's probably. If anything, he just suffers what Feyre gives him, but that's it.
Well, and then when he wants to talk to her, right?
Hmm.
Um no. Now, right, so he says, I need to ask you some questions, and she says later, and he says no now, while it's fresh in your mind. She's like, what? And he's like, I need to know everything. He apologizes, but oh, it's for our own good, our safety. So
Hmm.
the second she gets back from being stolen for a week, he's like, cool, what do you know? Pressing for
Yeah.
information. The second she gets back for
There's no war coming, and
yeah,
there's nothing to worry about.
uh-huh. The second she gets back from, because I just read this, the second she gets back from spring court and is with Rhys, right? She like crumples in the foyer and Rhys comes to her and is like
And he's like,
holding her face.
"Everyone leave."
Everyone leave. And she's like, do you want to know about spring court? And he's like, you can tell me later. I have other ideas. Like, I just want you here. I just need to be with
Yeah.
you. Like, let's go. Let's get you
Yeah,
cleaned
that
up,
is a
get
good
you
contrast.
healed.
It's
And
probably a
like,
similar pace in the book, yeah.
yeah, like her instinct is like, oh, he's going to want a full debriefing. And he's like, it's fine. Like, I'm glad you're home. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like, on the page before that, Tamlin's like, "I trashed half the house, he stole you," and then she's like, "He left me alone," and he's like, "Probably to get you to drop your guard. You have no idea what games he plays, what he's capable of," and then she goes, "I know, even as it tasted like ash on my tongue." To me, I go, "Oh, you're trying to appease him by
Mm-hmm.
lying, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to be scared of Rhys because if you act like you're not scared of Rhys or not, then he's gonna be like, you're brainwashed and you can be
Yep.
like,
Yep.
but it's funny that she already feels like she's betraying him. She can tell in her body that she's like,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, not only that, but then
that's
later,
the crack starting to show as well. Is like she
yeah.
full throated
Well,
be like, fuck Rhys.
and then even on page, I know I'm skipping a little bit for on page 85, right? It says,
Mhm.
because I trust you, Rhysand had said, and maybe he had scrambled my mind, even with the lessons in shielding, because describing the layout of his home, his court, and the mountains around them felt
Oh
like
yeah,
bathing in oil and mud. Like she does
she is.
not like
This
this.
is wrong.
She's
I
like,
don't
this feels
like this.
gross. I shouldn't be telling you these things. Like, this is Reese's private stuff. If he wanted you to know, he would invite you.
Yeah, and this last page is really about those last pages are really kind of like getting her to morally find some gymnastics to justify telling all this stuff about Rhys.
Also, he's such a dick. So, page 84, right? You need to tell us everything. So, he's demanding that she is completely transparent with him. You need to tell us everything, the layout of the night court, who you saw, what weapons, powers, blah, 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 right? And she's like, I didn't realize I was a spy. And he's like, as much as I hate your bargain, you've been granted access. So, blah, blah, blah. Um, and then she says, why do you want to know? What are you going to do? And he says, knowing my enemy's plans, his lifestyle is vital. And as for what we're going to do, that's neither here nor
Yes,
there.
he is like,
Completely dismissive. I need all this information, but it doesn't matter.
yeah,
You don't need to know what I'm going to do with the information, but it's vital that I get it, and you need to tell me everything. And she's like, well, what are you going to do with the information? He's like, it's neither here nor there. What the
yes,
fuck?
yeah,
I also find it ridiculous that they don't want her learning any of her powers. Like,
Yeah.
Tamlin has to have knowledge that the right, because Rhys later on says that the buildup of magic that he has to like really, because she says much later in the book, like, oh, you're kind of using like magic kind of at all times. And he's like, well, it helps release it. Like, if I don't release the magic, it can build up and like drive me
Oh, yeah.
crazy. And she's like,
He
wait,
wants more blue balls.
yeah. And she's like, wait, like actually insane? He's like, that's what I've been told. Like, I can feel it building sometimes. And like, I gotta let it out.
Maybe that's part of what her is fucking her over.
Yes. And so like that's part of Rhys's thing, right? He's like, you need to learn how to control it or it's going to drive you insane. And Tamlin's like, don't worry about it, babe. You don't need to do anything. Tamlin, you are a High Lord. You have to know that the buildup of magic is bad. And if she has a kernel of all 7 High Lords, imagine the well. Like Aelin goes through it too, right? When
Mhm.
Aelin, like when her magic is when she's been keeping a cap on it for too long, like
Yeah.
it hurts. And he's like, babe, you're fine. You're not going to be anywhere near a battlefield. You don't need to train at all.
Mhm.
It's fine.
Yeah. And oh, earlier up on that page, it also like basically when they first start talking about this part, she's like, "Do you think I have those abilities? It's possible." Lucian's like, "Here's the real stakes that the other High Lords are gonna be pissed and they'll come get you and they'll be mad." That's the other moment where it says the thing beneath my skin began roiling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's like her intuition being like, "Oh hell no," or like it's interesting in response to that kind of fear,
I
which makes
also,
sense, but
but
it's just like
here's again my
it's a tell.
question. I want proof of what other High Lords do you think would kill her for this? Rhys clearly not. Rhys brings it up, says I want you to train. So maybe they think Rhys would kill her for it, but doubtful. Now we have Dawncourt. What do we know of Dawncourt? Is Dawncourt so vindictive and so possessive of his own
Well, maybe
powers?
they portray themselves like that because doesn't Helion say that he's like doing an act when he's talking to in front of all
Yeah,
the other High Lords, and
fair.
it's only Rhys that knows his personality. Plus, I think it is more like this is what the Fae do type of thing.
Yeah.
Except when
I
we get
also
that
think
fleshed
it's
out, it's
just
not really they're not really like that as much.
I think it is some like ethnography type shit, right?
Yeah.
Where you apply your world and what you know to those of other people's, and the fact that you're like, right, it's like the lens in which, right, that's why ethnographies don't work. There aren't completely pure because the person who is observing a culture that is not their own is asking questions through the lens of their own culture, thus skewing the culture that they are looking
Yeah.
at, right? It's
Yeah.
not to completely invalidate ethnography, but it's to know that there's a bias inherent in it. So I think that that's
Hmm.
this what this is doing, right? That Tamlin is the type to possibly not want someone else to have his fucking power. Or at least his
Yeah.
dad wouldn't, his court wouldn't, right? That if his dad knew
Yeah.
that someone had a kernel of his power, he's like, "Oh, my dad will fucking kill him for sure." And even Lucian, maybe that's he's like Baron.
Baron definitely seems
Yeah,
like one who
Baron is
would.
that kind of guy. And so maybe it's not so much that other High Lords would, but the fact that
Their dad.
their High Lords, their culture would,
Hmm.
that they're applying that across the board, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I like that.
our people would kill you, so other High Lords would too.
That
They're
makes a
just
lot of
making the
sense. Yeah.
assumptions,
They're
which
projecting.
also portrays the fact that Autumn Court and Spring Court are the villainous courts.
Yeah. That is interesting.
Also, there is a moment, we'll get to it, but there's a moment on 87 that pisses me off so much.
Okay.
Yeah, I also have no idea why they don't think there will be a war. They are so sure that there won't be a war.
I don't think
Why?
so. I think they're just
Why?
lying to her.
Maybe.
I think okay, because here, let me find it.
But right, I could use my powers against Hybern. That's out of the question, especially as there will be no war against Hybern. So
Oh, okay.
you want to know you want to know everything about your enemy, the Night Court, because knowing everything about your enemy is vital. But you
Mhm.
said there will be no war with Hybern.
Yeah,
Is that
no,
because
peace
you're
with
already?
Ivern.
Is that because you're
Yeah.
already there? So then maybe that's what what they're like. Azriel would want to know that Lucian went to Hybern.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see that. I could see it less about Lucian going to Daycourt, but unless he was trying to
Especially
recruit someone from Daycourt to Hybern or something.
no, but
Um,
I think it might be the Lucian theory that like maybe he wasn't talking to Hybern in book one, but I think he for sure has been doing some shit because
Oh, I
right
think he probably I
the
still
whole
think
time.
he's
Yeah,
talking to
because
anyone.
yeah, when Tamlin is so sure that there won't be a war with Hybern, and then later on 87, when the after the thing that I want to talk about more, but right, she says, but Hybern, and Lucien intervenes calmly and says, I already have my sources looking into it.
Yeah, no, that's the tell that he has that, yeah.
Yeah. You're like, so you already have people in Hybern. So if nothing
Yes.
else, maybe Lucien didn't go, but he has connections to Hybern.
He is Hybern's emissary.
Yeah. So maybe he
Yeah,
reached out to Hybern while she was with Rhys, and that's what she's like, Azriel would want to know. And he's like, I'm sure he already knows. Like,
yeah.
and then she's like,
Um,
we played games last time. And so same thing where she's like, the chick that you have a bargain with is the bride of somebody who's allying with Hybern. Like, we played games last time. We can't be playing
that
games
would
this
make yeah,
time.
yeah. Also, kind of before this, all that, the part where,
Is this the part that's gonna
she
piss me off?
she no, I think it's before.
Oh, okay.
Um, she asked, she asked them point blank, "Did you know I demanded?" Because this is part of what is like at stake. Like part of the thing with Tamlin is like she's been putting up with all this stuff, but this is like if she has powers, if she could help her family,
Mm-hmm.
he knew and didn't let her know that, she's gonna be pissed. And this is part of like what I'm sort of seeing is like the cracks of not trusting Tamlin and trusting Rhys more. And she demands, "Did you know I demanded?" Lucien wouldn't meet my eyes. He's the more honest. He
Mm-hmm.
can't look at her because he knows he can't lie to her. Tamlin has no problem. He says, "I'd hoped it wasn't true." Carefully.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems like he is actually just a straight liar.
And then he immediately deflects. And now that Rhys suspects, there's no telling what he'd do with the information. Completely deflects from
Yes.
himself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And she's
It's such a manipulative move. And then he says, "I can guard you from whatever comes our way." And I wrote, "But can you guard her from yourself?"
yeah. But even
Because
still,
yeah.
she still acknowledges that he can't. Right?
No. Yeah.
There would
And 'cause
be
she goes, "I would never allow another Amarantha."
But even with
Like,
that, she says, for there had been a time when he could not. When
yeah.
he had been vulnerable and he had watched me be tortured to death and could do nothing to stop her.
Yeah.
She's straight like, "What do you mean that you can protect me? There's already been a time when you couldn't."
Yeah.
She doesn't say
Um
it, but she's thinking it.
I do think that's that high lady energy when she's like, "I would not allow another Amarantha."
Yeah.
Um, it's like weird. She's weirdly determined and confident in a way that she's not usually. Um, and yeah, I will also say we're down to the so now the part we were talking about. So she says, "I could use my powers against Hybern." Tamlin says that's out of the question again. So he starts by saying that's out of the question, meaning not that war's inevitable. He doesn't say we're not having a war. He says we're not going to fight against Hybern, and
Mhm.
then he says especially as there will be no war. Ag- Sorry, yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
There will be no war against Hybern, and then she says Rhys says war is inevitable. We'll be hit hard, and Lucien again doesn't. He can't. I feel like Lucien can't lie to her directly.
Mhm.
So he just says, and Rhys knows everything. He just finds like a way to pivot instead of
Yeah.
like directly
Mhm.
contradicting. And and then Tamlin also just switches over to be like, "You have no training," and all his language around her is like just
Then
limiting.
he beats her down. He
You
says,
can't learn.
"You
You don't
don't
know
know you
anything.
don't know anything, and I don't have the time to catch you up to speed."
Mhm.
Is what he just said. Rhys wants you to train for what? You don't know anything.
Yeah, and then the line you were talking about, like, "I'm not gonna have you anywhere near a battlefield," like that is such dad energy. Like,
That's not even the one that pisses me off.
no, but I think you said
Yeah.
earlier that yeah, yeah. But yeah, that whole section with especially the "that's out of the question. There'll be no war against Hybern." I was like,
Yeah. Yes.
huh?
So despite what he thinks you might be able to do, Feyre, I'm not going to have you anywhere near a battlefield, especially if it means revealing whatever powers you have to our enemies. You'd be fighting Hybern at your front and have foes with friendly faces at your back. And she says, I don't care. And he says, I care. He snarls. And Lucien whooshes out of breath.
Yeah,
And
Lucian's
then
like, "Oh shit."
he says this, and oh my God, I care if you die, if you're hurt, if you will be in danger every moment. if you will be in danger every moment for the rest of our lives. He's still worried about himself. I'm worried that someone's going to hunt you for the rest of our lives, for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. I'm worried that I'm going to have to look over my shoulder for the rest of my life if they find out.
Yeah.
Keep
Because they
quiet.
are in that part, but he starts with "I care," which I get that rhetorically, like, as a tactic of being like, "Okay, but me, but,"
Yeah.
but it still
But then
is, like,
again,
it's very
it's
funny because he
right.
centers himself.
And then again, there will be no training and you're going to keep this between us. To which he's going to tell Ianthe right away.
Yeah, yes.
Mhm.
Because yeah, yeah, Anthony he trusts her way too much. And but I will say also Lucien is once again the only one looking out for Feyre. He gives her a way to calm down, which is I have my sources looking into it, and to that I was like, the, yeah. I wrote Lucien says he's got Hybern handled with like 50 exclamation points.
Mhm.
Um,
Not only that, but then he also says, right, we could perhaps train her in secret. And Tamlin is still like, too many risks, too many variables, and there will be no conflict with Hybern, no war.
yeah, with Hybern,
Yeah.
not there will be no war at all, just there would be no conflict with Hybern. Um, and she's also not taking it. She's like when her family's involved, she's like, don't feel me,
Yeah.
before she's like, I'll put it aside for Tamlin's sake, blah blah blah. But now that she feels threatened, she's like, fuck you. That's wishful thinking.
Not only that, but
Um,
okay, so here's the thing
and
though.
also
So
the
she
cracks.
might have these powers that could
Mhm.
change the tide in war. If
Mhm.
nothing else, even if there's no war, it could protect her against ever being in a position like she was under the mountain ever again and
Yeah.
give her the possibility to protect her people and her high lord, right? Tamlin.
Hmm.
On top of that, if she does not train this power that she possibly has that he hopes she doesn't have, it could kill her. It could make her go insane.
Yeah, but she also doesn't know that, and I wonder
Sure,
if
but I
Tamlin does he not think about that or.
okay, but even still, there's so
Mhm.
many stakes, right? It's like I
Yeah.
could protect me and mine, I could protect my family, I could be a good person here in this court, I could be valuable, I can make sure that I protect myself, and I could learn this new world. I can learn what this new life means to me. I can learn about myself that I'm going to be stuck in this body for the next 1,000 years. And then she
Mhm.
says, he was the High Lord, my High Lord. He was the shield and defender of his people, of me. And if keeping me safe meant that his people could continue to hope to build a new life, that he could do the same, I could bow to this one thing. I said, it's not one thing, it's everything.
Yeah, she's always making these kinds of justifications, like,
Every
all the
single,
time.
like the crux of who you are. You were
Mhm,
resurrected with new abilities and powers. That's everything. That's the core of you now, babe. I can
mhm.
bend on this one thing. No, actually, it's at least seven things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of things, and I do think it's funny because as soon as she sort of we're assuming this is, like it's not technically an internal thought, but it's like it's
Hmm.
basically a thought, where she says, "I could bat him on this one thing," and then line break, it's like she paused and she's like, "Can I?" And then she goes, "I can do it." And she resolves to. And then the next line, "You are no one's subject," which, we've talked about the italics being possibly Reese's voice in her head. At
Hmm.
this very moment, it's at least Reese's voice in her memory in his head, probably not
Yeah.
his actual voice.
Yeah.
And
Because
I
she has her
kind of would
shields
prefer
up.
it to not be he's literally speaking down the
Yeah.
bond to her
No.
because it kind of is better that she's remembering it's sticking
Yes.
with her and
Yeah.
she's internalizing it because it feels like that's the real truth that she's noticing is like she's convincing herself that she can bow to Tamlin, but then she's like the truth of it, the italics is like, but I
Well,
don't bow to anybody,
and then that scares her though.
yeah. Yes, and then she goes, maybe Rhysand had altered my mind because what am I thinking right now? That's
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm changing, I'm different, I don't like this. And then now we're gonna dive full force into the thought alone was enough for me to begin feeding Tamlin details once more. She's
Yeah.
like, let's not, um, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good chapter though.
Yeah, that is a fun chapter. I like the politics of it and like
Hmm.
I never noticed how much like Lucian really he is kind of you really pay attention to him. He really is feels bad for Feyre.
And
Nobody's
I
perfect, but
feel like it's
He definitely
right,
seems like he's trying.
we see Lucien become disillusioned very slowly
Yes.
with Tamlin, and like kind of over time. And granted, like once the the Elaine mate thing happens, it snaps a bit more, although he still kind of holds on, right? He like throws accusations at her and is like, were you
Mhm.
fucking, like, how long were you fucking Rhys before you knew about the mate bond? And she's like, fuck off, dude. And like there's still some tensions and stuff, but like it's like his slow disillusion, and he's having a hard time letting go of his loyalty. And one
Mhm.
of the things that really allows him to be like, okay, I can't just turn a blind eye and just trust blindly this guy anymore, is because she leaves, she gets taken or whatever. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I messed up, I should have been there for you, I should have had your back. And she's like, you didn't do shit. And like I feel like there's the disillusionment of Tamlin, and then there's the like breakdown of the loyalty to Tamlin, and that's what happens in this book and like the beginning of the next book.
Mhm.
He's
And it's
pissed
really
about
hard
Elaine for
to
sure.
get over a bond like that, especially when he's
Yeah.
had so much shitty people.
Yeah. And he's mad about what happens in Hybern at the end of this book.
Mhm.
And
It's like a wake-up call. He's like,
yeah.
"Oh, I have a mate and she's."
But she does kind of spat in his face. She's like, "Are you mad about Hybern because it was your mate that got caught in the crosshairs, or are you actually mad because you know it's fucked up?" And then he's like, "Are you mad because your
Mhm.
mate, or are you actually mad at the situation?" And she's like, "You bitch," and like, but they have that like, there's a honesty that they have, and there's a like a push and pull that they have with each other that her and Tamlin don't ever get to.
Mhm. Yeah.
So next week we will look at chapter 8, To the Stars Who Listen. We will see you then.
See you then.